In the autumn of 1911, the Kingdom of Italy declared war on the crumbling Ottoman Empire, hoping to expand its reach and carve out a colonial presence in North Africa. The target, Tripolitania and Cyrenaica, the regions that would later become modern-day Libya. Italy, late to the colonial game compared to Britain and France, saw the Ottoman provinces as ripe for the taking. The war would mark a milestone in modern warfare, with the first ever military use of aircraft, wireless communication, and mobile logistics. But what the world didn't know, and what has remained buried in classified archives for over a century, is that the Italo-Turkish War was also the first temporal war in human history. The story begins not in 1911, but in the year 2047. Humanity had made staggering scientific progress, including the invention of time displacement through a secretive research initiative known as Project Chronogate. Initially designed for archaeological observation, the technology was soon adapted by various governments for more strategic purposes. Among the project's key developers was Dr. Elena Moretti, a renowned Italian military historian. Disillusioned with her country's modern decline and obsessed with restoring Italy's historical prestige, she hijacked the project's prototype time capsule and disappeared. Destination: September 1911. Dr. Moretti emerged in the port city of Naples just days before Italy's fleet set sail for Tripoli. Disguised as an intelligence consultant from the War Ministry, she quickly inserted herself into General Carlo Caneva's inner circle. With her deep knowledge of military tactics, epidemiology, engineering, and 20th century warfare, she offered an irresistible advantage. Under her guidance, Italy implemented radio systems for coordinating ground troops, constructed rudimentary armored cars based on blueprints she carried, and prepared a strategic playbook that outpaced anything the Ottomans could anticipate. Her presence, though covert, radically accelerated Italy's initial successes. Tripoli fell with astonishing ease, followed swiftly by Misrata, Sirte, and Derna. The Ottomans, though stretched thin and poorly equipped, were not blind. Reports began to reach Istanbul of Italian soldiers using fire mirrors, solar-powered scopes, light-talking machines, radios, and tactics far more efficient than expected. The young officer Mustafa Kemal, stationed in Libya, grew suspicious. The rate at which Italy was advancing made no sense. In response, he proposed a radical shift in strategy, abandoning fixed defenses in favor of mobile desert warfare. Unbeknownst to Kemal, help was coming from the future. In the year 2081, an agent of the Turkish Republic's Time Sovereignty Division, Leyla Sadik, was sent back to 1911 to counteract Drive Moretti's influence. Sadik, an expert in insurgency and information warfare, arrived deep in the Libyan interior near the oasis of Ghadams. She made contact with Ottoman officers and influential tribal leaders like Suleiman al-Biruni. Posing as an exiled scientist from Cairo, she introduced guerrilla warfare principles that would not be widely known for another 100 years: hit-and-run raids, decentralized leadership, sabotage of supply routes, and psychological operations. Thanks to Sadik's influence, the Ottomans began fighting a new kind of war. Italian supply lines were ambushed using IED-like traps. Ottoman scouts equipped with improvised signal mirrors and map triangulation could track Italian movements in real time. In one instance, Ottoman forces lured an Italian convoy into a dry riverbed and collapsed the canyon walls using buried charges, an unthinkable tactic for the era. By spring 1912, the war had devolved into a brutal stalemate. Italy controlled the coast, but the interior was a boiling cauldron of resistance. Moretti, frustrated, urged Rome to deploy experimental weapons, nerve gas derivatives and aerial cluster bombs derived from World War I and World War II blueprints. Italian officials, terrified of potential backlash and unaware of Moretti's true origins, hesitated. Meanwhile, Mustafa Kemal, with Sadik's counsel, created mobile command posts hidden in underground Berber tunnels. These became hubs of innovation. Ottoman troops began using wax-sealed scrolls encoded with cipher wheels, an early form of field encryption taught by Sadik. She even introduced the concept of asymmetric warfare, using small units to attack and vanish before retaliation. But war was not the only battlefield. In the ruins of Leptis Magna, an ancient Roman city near the Libyan coast, Sadik discovered a hidden capsule, Moretti's abandoned data cache. Inside were fragments of her plans, technical manuals, and a partially functional AI assistant named Nestor. Using this, Sadik began decoding Moretti's full strategy and revealed it to Kemal. The implications were vast. Moretti had not only altered Italian tactics, but was preparing Italy for an early 20th century domination of the Mediterranean. If left unchecked, the balance of global power would shift irreversibly. Back in Italy, Moretti's influence was also raising eyebrows. Journalists noticed uncanny battlefield successes and whispered of a shadow strategist. She was eventually summoned to Rome by Prime Minister Giolitti, who interrogated her under the pretense of awarding her a medal. Moretti revealed fragments of her origin, enough to awe and terrify the cabinet. Some saw her as a messiah of modern Italy. Others feared she would trigger global instability. She was confined to a high-security villa under constant watch, but not before uploading her core data to an underground network of loyalists in the Italian military. As the war wound down with the Treaty of Auchi in October 1912, Italy officially gained control of Libya, but at a far higher cost than expected. Ottoman resistance, bolstered by future tactics, had prevented complete domination. Moretti vanished before the treaty was signed. Some say she activated a fallback chronogate buried beneath a Roman fort outside Tobruk. Others believe she lived out her life in hiding, shaping Italy's future from the shadows. Layla Sadik returned to her own time through a chronogate portal embedded in an ancient Phoenician ruin. Her mission, while successful in halting Italian temporal supremacy, came at a price. Ottoman history was no longer linear. Mustafa Kemal's experience in Libya had changed him. He emerged with a sharper understanding of nationalist warfare, communication control, and anti-imperial ideology. These lessons would eventually shape the Turkish War of Independence and the founding of the modern republic. In the altered timeline, World War I played out differently. Italy, armed with Moretti's early doctrines, joined the Allies earlier and captured key Austro-Hungarian positions by 1916. Ottoman forces in the Middle East held off British advances longer, forcing a more favorable post-war arrangement. The Arab world, having tasted organized resistance, did not submit as easily to Western mandates. Libya became a flashpoint of political ideas and counter-colonial ideology. By the late 20th century, historians and intelligence agencies began discovering temporal anomalies. Advanced devices buried in 1912 bunkers, encrypted letters referencing future events, and even human remains with medical implants from the 21st century. These discoveries led to the formation of the United Nations Time Integrity Commission, UNTIC, tasked with managing temporal contamination and suppressing evidence of chrono warfare. In 2061, the fragile balance shattered. Competing future powers attempted to seize Tripoli's temporal core. A quantum rift formed by the overlapping chronogate emissions. A new conflict began, the Chrono War. Dozens of time agents from rival eras poured into North Africa, each determined to reshape history in their favor. The sands of Libya, once soaked in blood and oil, now held the fate of time itself. Thus, the Italo-Turkish War, once a footnote in imperial history, became the spark that ignited a century-long battle for temporal dominance. It was not just a war over land, but over who had the right to write history. The past, it turned out, was never truly past. It was a battlefield, and it had just begun to fight back.